So I went to Vancouver back in March. Yeah, to see NHL 16. And I saw the game in a much earlier state, and I got to play it, and I got to learn about the various modes and everything that was going on with it. And people who listen to the Press Row podcast may recall that I came out of last year's E3 excited for NHL in the way that I'm excited for Madden right now. And I was really burned by that because I was like, oh, I think NHL has a shot at being the sports game of the year. And then all the modes were missing and it was cut to the bone. And so it was a disaster, and it really hurt my soul to see it happen because hockey is one of my favorite sports. I love hockey. I need a good hockey game. So I feel like the NHL team was like, okay, well, we want to show that we're making good on things. So they had me come over and check out the game. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep reserving judgment. And I saw it again at the E3 Judges Week, and it was much cleaner and it was much sharper. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is looking really good. This is a lot more fun than last year, because people who listen to me on this podcast know that in addition to my problems with the modes, I didn't think NHL 15 was that fun to play. It felt sluggish. It felt awkward. And just inevitably, I would grow tired of it. There would be things like, there were so many things that bothered me about NHL 15. The way that the board play felt really artificial, and players would get sucked into the boards. The way that they took out the jostling in front of the net. The way that the AI was tuned in such a way that it always seemed to be offside. It just felt not very good, especially compared to every other sports game. So I went into this demo. So E3 rolled around, and I was like, well, I've already seen NHL, and it's looking good. And then I was walking out of the show floor a couple days ago, and I ran into the NHL team, and they go, Kat, you have to come to the booth because NHL is we've got a new demo, even from the Judges Week. And I'm like, why did I go to Judges Week? It's all new demos now. You got to come by and play it. It's even better now. And I'm like, all right, sure, fine, whatever. And so I dropped by the NHL booth and I played a game because I was tired and I needed a hockey pick-me-up. And I played it. And it was indeed looking even better than the E3 Judges Week. And so I'll try to highlight a few things that jumped out at me. It's a lot smoother, just in terms of animation. They've made some pretty subtle tweaks to the way that the players gather up the puck, to the player locomotion. So, and the net effect is that I feel like I have a lot more control over my players. And when I was playing today, I was the Sharks, and my opponent was one of the designers of NHL, and he was the Avalanche. Boo, Avalanche. Sorry, Avalanche fans, but boo. And he beat me 5-2. But compared to previous years, I felt like every one of those goals was my fault, because usually it was me being too aggressive and getting out of position, and him having a really good shot at the net and burying the puck. I was like, fair play to you. And then when I had a chance, when I had a really juicy opportunity, I was able to do the same thing. And it felt like hockey. It felt good. I liked it. I was like, yeah, no, this is good. Now, there's still work to be done. As I already said, the jostling in front of the net Still not there. Probably won't be there till next year. So that's disappointing because, I mean, that was from last gen. And they explained why they didn't put it in. It was more or less to do with the fact that they thought it looked too artificial, and if they were going to put it in, they wanted to do it right. And then also, I think the board play really needs work. Like, I think that should be their point of focus next year. But otherwise, this game is just way more fun than last year. Way more fun. And all of the modes are back, with the exception of GM Connected, unfortunately, which is just not coming back. And the Winter Classic is not there either. And I asked, why is the Winter Classic not there? And the Winter Classic is not there because, unfortunately, apparently it's just a novelty, and nobody was playing it. And so they were like, oh, well, okay, well, we're not going to bother with this one because we have limited resources and people don't seem to really care, which is too bad because the Winter Classic is such a great, and the Stadium Series are such great parts of hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like such a great showcase event that the fact that they're not there feels like a missed opportunity. Like, I wish they could make it work. I think the biggest problem with the Winter Classic in previous years was that it was always the previous year's Winter Classic. Like, if I could actually play that year's upcoming Winter Classic, much like I can play the upcoming Super Bowl or whatever, that would be great, you know? Like, I'd be like, oh yeah, no, I'm totally looking forward to playing, I don't know who the next Winter Classic is going to be. Oh, you mean I get to play a sneak peek of the Blackhawks versus the Wild at TCF Bank Stadium? I think it's TCF Bank Stadium. Whatever. It's in Minneapolis. That's the important thing. Sweet. I'm going to do it. But it's not in there. I guess it's a resource issue. But anyway, I've talked way too much about the Winter Classic. It's not there. And you still can't customize your soundtracks, unfortunately. But they've went and licensed a large number of the goal songs for the teams. And even better, they're not rotating this time. If they have the licensed song for your team, it will play after you score a goal.
Nice.
So thank God for that. And I got to say the presentation looks way better. They added in the mascots. The mascots pop in realistically. Every arena has like one little thing that, you know, is part of the arena. So when I was playing as the Sharks have a giant shark head up in the rafters that comes down. The players skate out of the shark head, right? Mm-hmm. And when the Sharks score a goal, the shark eyes glow. And so that's in the game, and it looks great. I love it. And so Sharks fans are going to enjoy that. And as a Wild fan, they got the lighthouse in the corner of the arena that lights up and blows smoke when they score a goal. So these touches are all very welcome. And then if you look at each of the different modes, each mode has some interesting new feature. Like in the career mode, they've put in a pretty good looking morale system that apparently it's based on Martin St. Louis' hissy fit after he got left off the Olympic team, I think. And he ended up having a big falling out with Steve Yzerman a couple of years ago and getting traded to the Rangers.
Right.
So that was kind of the genesis of that idea. And then in Be a Pro, they put in the Sim Shift again, thank God, because that mode was legitimately unplayable without it. But they also included dynamic stats that grow depending on how you play the game. And then the EA SHL is back because, of course, it had to be back. But they've also put in player classes, which are kind of codified versions of the customized characters that people would build. So you don't have to sit there and like overly tune the stats. And what was interesting was that they brought in a lot of like community people to actually like create the archetypes for these stats, like hardcore EA SHL, like top tier people to help like tune these different classes so that they're balanced. And I think the thing that's interesting about that is the way that it kind of creates a metagame where it's like, okay, you can have like a team full of like grinders who are going to be pretty slow, but they're just going to beat the living crap out of you, or you can get all snipers, or you can try to put together a mix of the groups. And I think that there's going to be kind of some optimal like strategies, and you're going to see a lot more personality in the way that the teams are constructed. But the main thing is EASHL is back. So this year's version of NHL, just by virtue of the fact that it's playable and fun and the modes work and minor leagues are back and they've made some solid improvements across the board and the presentation is much better, and all in all the graphics are a nice leap over last year with character models who look much better. NHL is definitely, it just by all virtue of all of that, NHL is the most improved game.